We've been walking through a series looking at the conversations that Jesus has in the Gospel of John. Sometimes these conversations are tied to miracles, sometimes they're not. But all of the conversations and all of the miracles, all the roads in the Gospel of John lead here. Lazarus, the brother of Mary and Martha, people who are close to Jesus, is sick. And Jesus is not there. And when he finds out about it, Jesus does not hurry. And so Lazarus dies. I love the interaction between Jesus and his disciples on the front end of this story. This is John 11, starting in verse 11. After saying this, Jesus told them as the disciples here, Jesus told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him." The disciples said to Jesus, "Lord, if he's asleep, he'll be all right." Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death. The disciples thought he was referring merely to sleep. And this is another great one if you're putting a random Bible verse in a greeting card to someone. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead." These guys have been following Jesus for a long time now, and they're used to him speaking in parables and riddles and all this other stuff. And so I enjoy that when he says Lazarus has fallen asleep, that the disciples are like, okay, what does he mean this time? Like, what is sleep a metaphor? Like, how is this affecting the kingdom of God and all that? And Jesus has come and be like, no, he's dead. Like, Lazarus, he's dead, in fact. By the time they arrive, Lazarus has been dead, in fact, for 4 days. His sister Martha comes out to meet Jesus, and she says the thing that many of them are thinking and what we would be thinking if we were there too. Jesus, if you had been here, he wouldn't have died. Because they've seen it at this point in the story. All these miracles, all these things, they, Martha at least, but really the people gathered around them, operate under the assumption that if Jesus had been physically present there, then this could have been prevented. That Jesus had the power to do it, he just wasn't in the right longitude and latitude. And even now, even 4 days after he dies, Martha comes and says the thing she's feeling. She's honest to say, God, if you had been here, this would have gone differently. And in this exchange, there is a great call to faith. This is a famous story. I'm going to show you this part in the Message, Eugene Peterson's contemporary paraphrase. This is verse 21 of John 11 in the Message. Sometimes the Message just helps me, and I hope it helps you to hear something maybe in a different kind of way than we've heard it before. Martha said to Jesus, "Master, if you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Even now, I know that whatever you ask God, he will give you." Jesus said, "Your brother will be raised up." And Martha replied, I know that he will be raised up in the resurrection at the end of time. And Jesus says, you don't have to wait for the end. I am right now resurrection and life. And the one who believes in me, even though he or she dies, will live, and everyone who lives believing in me does not ultimately die at all. Do you believe this? Martha expects the theological answer. Your brother is dead, but don't worry, one day he'll live again. But what Jesus gives her in response is not a solution for her specific season. As I always like to point out in this story, at any point, Jesus could show up to these people and say, hey, hang on 1 second. Let me go get him. Because he's gonna. But before he does all of that, he doesn't give Martha the answer of, just hang on 1 second, let me go over there. Sorry I wasn't here. Sorry I was late. Let me go get him. All this will be fine in just a minute. He doesn't give Martha the answer that helps her in this specific season. What Jesus gives her is the way to live through every season. Everyone who lives believing in me does not ultimately die at all. There are certainly people who live without believing, but Jesus knows this truth that it is also possible to believe without living. And the only way to go through life, including the hardships Lazarus' family is facing here, the only way to go through this is to live believing. Do you believe this? And one of the things that's most helpful about how do we live believing is something Jesus demonstrates throughout his time in ministry, which is every time he does one of these miracles, up to and including this one, every time, he doesn't just do it by himself. Now, there's no doubt that none of these miracles are happening without the power of fully God and Jesus Christ operating here on this earth. But at every miracle, Jesus could have done things entirely on his own. If he can turn water into wine, surely it would have been no thing for him to magically, Jesus powerly put water in those stone jars by himself, or just put wine in those stone jars by himself. But instead, he invites the servants to come and fill the jars with water. When he heals an official's son at a distance, he only tells the father that his son will live. He does not tell the father that his son has been healed right in that moment. It's the man's own servants who run to him on his journey back home to his son to tell him that he's already been cured. The servants in both of those stories get to participate in the miracle, even though in the story of him healing the official's son, the servants were never even in the same town as Jesus. Sometimes he invites the people being healed to participate in their own healing. The man who was paralyzed, Jesus tells him to get up, take his mat, and walk. And a man who was born blind, as we looked at last week, is told to go wash in the pool. Jesus invites them to be a part of their own story. When Jesus feeds 5,000 people, he starts that conversation by looking at his disciples and saying, "Where will we get bread for these people to eat?" He engages them on the front end of the miracle, and then, after the thing is done, invites his disciples to go and carry baskets throughout the crowd. I don't think Jesus is just doing this because he's a lazy boss. I don't think he's looking at his disciples and being like, okay, the CEO here has fed all these people, you grunts, get the baskets and go pick up the leftovers. I don't think that's how this works. He could have done all of those things by himself at every single turn, even when he walks on water. Something that obviously he is entirely doing of his own will and his own glory and his own power. In the Gospel of John, it says, the disciples pulled him into the boat. They got to put their hands on it. He's walking on water, y'all. He could levitate into the boat. He's Jesus. All of these options are available to him. But at every turn, he invites you and me to get our hands in. Sometimes it's servants. Sometimes it's the people being healed themselves. Often it's the disciples who, even in the face of staggering thing after staggering thing, still come to this story kind of at the end of all these miracles being like, okay, when he says Lazarus is asleep, what does he mean? And get to touch the miracle, get to pull Jesus into the boat in ways that we maybe cannot even fully imagine. At every turn, Jesus could have done all of these things completely by himself and said, that's right, it's me, I'm Jesus. I'm back for my fourth miracle. And by the way, these miracles are getting bigger. I don't know if you've noticed. He can do all of these things. But he performs miracle without spectacle. With Lazarus, it's hard for there not to be spectacle. But at each one, he really provides, as we've shared this year, just enough light to see. And he invites the participation of people around him so that simultaneously our call is to believe, but also to live. Miracle without spectacle. Jesus doesn't do these things all by himself. He invites participation, and he doesn't look at the disciples and say, I don't know, you raised Lazarus from the dead. He's not doing it fully by himself, and he's not looking at us and saying, you all figure it out. And at the tomb of his friend Lazarus, he's going to do it again. Here's verse 38 of this story. Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Again, I have to assume Jesus is not just a lazy CEO. Do you know who's more capable than anyone of taking away that stone? He's going to raise this guy from the dead. Do you think the stone is too much for him? It's getting ready to not be in a couple weeks. But he looks at these people and says, "Take away the stone." If you watch The Chosen, in this moment in The Chosen, Jesus, and in the way The Chosen interpreted it, it's a couple or 3 dozen people that are there, but it's not hundreds. But in that couple or 3 dozen, you've got the disciples, you've got the family, you've got some, just nosy people, you've got some religious leaders, you've got kind of a whole mixture. And in The Chosen, when Jesus says, "Take away the stone," they all just kind of look at each other. Like, what does he mean? You take away the stone. Not one of them, not even Peter, is brave enough to be like, "I'm on it. Let me get up here." And there's this great moment of awkward silence, and in The Chosen, Jesus turns around and looks at everybody and goes, "Was I unclear?" I really like that. It's not in the text, but it is in The Chosen. I really enjoy that. He could do it himself. Or he could use this moment to shame the whole bunch and say, all of this you've seen. You still don't believe? But it doesn't do any of that. Martha, very practical, the sister of Lazarus, says to Jesus, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead for 4 days." It's impossible for me to preach this passage without pointing out that the King James here says, "Lord, by this time he stinketh." Thank you very much. I am a 44-year-old man and a 12-year-old boy in the same body. It's a simple thing here. But Jesus invites those gathered in this place to participate in the thing. And one thing about rolling away stones is even Peter, this is going to require a group effort. If Jesus isn't going to Jesus it by himself, it's going to require multiple people to come and gather and roll this thing away. And in this miracle, Jesus invites participation both before and after it happens. Here's the thing itself. This is verse 43. When he had said this, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." He raised him from the dead. He could unbind him with his Jesus miracle power if he wanted to. But I continue to think Jesus is more than a lazy CEO, or even here that Jesus is not like, "You stink, somebody else go over there and do that." Both, much like with the feeding of the 5,000, both before the miracle, where will we get bread to feed all these people? And after, take these baskets and collect the leftovers. Jesus invites people to participate in the thing that he is doing. Not just to believe that he's going to do a thing. Many of them already believe some of that if Jesus had been in the town, that he could have saved Lazarus' life. But here, he's going to do this amazing thing that still, by the way, is done with less Jesus could have shot a beam down from heaven visible for 1,000 miles around when he raised Lazarus from the dead, so that people would have no doubt. But he's much more personal than that. It's miracle without spectacle, even when he's raising the dead, and even when he's raising the dead, he looks at the followers and the people around him and says, "Take away the stone before and after, unbind him and let him go." Jesus, at every stop, at every miracle, at every turn in the story, Jesus invites us to participate. And I know we can't mass produce miracles the way we'd like to. But I do know that in every season, the invitation is to live believing. And I know that I could fill up some water jars. I know that I can run with good news. I know that I can carry baskets and help feed with loaves and fish. I know that when we ourselves are seeking healing, I can pick up my mat and wash my face. And the question for this miracle is, where can we help roll away a stone? Where can we help clear the way for someone to get to Jesus? Because I can't raise the dead, and I can't roll a stone away by myself. But Jesus implies that that is something that we can do together with help. I'll close with this. I have found, and I don't know if this is more of a male thing or just a human being thing. But you ever been together with a group of people and you all work together to lift something heavy? It's an incredible thing on the other side of that. When I was like 20, I went on a mission trip in very rural southeast Kentucky. And I have lived in some very rural places in Southwest Virginia, but I'm still not sure in America that I have been to a more rural place than, I couldn't even tell you where it was in southeast Kentucky. So this is a sort of thing where a different church came every week, and this week our church worked on this project, and then the next week another church would come in and pick up where they left off and all that. And so over the course of the summer, people's homes or schools and all that would get a lot of progress and a lot of repair work. I can promise you I did not go on the trip because I am skilled in repairs and maintenance. Many of y'all know me well enough to know that that's a lie. And I was 20. I wasn't a pastor. Wasn't a youth director. Like, I didn't go on the trip to preach or anything like that. I went on the trip because the same reason most 20-year-old guys go on the trip. There's a girl I thought was cute was going on the trip, so I went on the trip. And then when we got there, that girl got put on a completely different work crew than me, so I was like, oh man, this is a poorly executed week here on my part. So we slept at a school. It's deeply rural. We slept at a school, and then we would go out. And by go out, I mean like drive for 45 minutes to get to these places. And they put me with this guy who was a civil engineer who was like 5'2" and 80 pounds soaking wet. And it was just me and him in this truck. And I'm, like, as a person, I get to stand up here and do this, and this is so much fun and so meaningful for me every week. But as a person, I'm fairly introverted. And this dude, civil engineer dude, it was like 15 times more introverted than me. And so we would drive, just me and him in the truck at like 6 in the morning. We would drive 45 minutes, and we would say nothing to each other. Nothing. And this is like 2002, so there was no, let me just check my phone the whole time. On day 3, when we got back to the area where the school was that at least had like a gas station, I bought a newspaper so I could have something to read in the car the next morning so it wasn't so brutally awkward. But we would get to these places, and when it came time for me and him and the other guys who would come from other places to work together to lift a thing, like, those moments were magic. We would say more to each other in those 30 seconds than we'd say to each other the rest of the day. But in those moments of like, we're all working together and you're looking at each other and you're like, okay, 1, 2, 3, and then you do the thing. And there may be a little testosterone component to this, for sure. But like, in those moments, especially as the week goes on, you're like, yes. Did you see that great? At one point, this dude needed to get on the roof, and he looked at me and goes, hoist me. And I was like, I don't know. We haven't talked. I don't know you. Are you serious? And he was. And so I Spider-Man'd this guy up on the roof. I don't remember this guy's name. But I remember that. And I remember these moments where a group of people working together who may not know or speak to each other at all can work together to lift heavy things. And we're not lifting heavy things to show off. We're lifting heavy things so this person who lives in this place that is in such poverty that they've sold the siding off their house can have a new floor or a new roof. Not in 1 week, but over the course of 1,000 different churches, not 1,000, but a church a week for an entire summer, Methodists and Baptists and Lutherans and all that good stuff, all working together to do something good. There's great power when we work together to do a thing, a unique kind of celebratory power. And Jesus looks at these guys, all of them, not the disciples, all of them gathered there and says, take away the stone. And the instinct is to be like that he's talking to someone else. He's not. He's talking to you. He's talking to me. I got no repairs and maintenance qualifications, and he's talking to me. Unbind him and let him go. He's not talking to somebody else. He's talking to you and me. At every turn, when he does these amazing, miraculous things, he invites people to put their hands in. And there is something about putting our hands in to lift and move heavy things that's just better and more bonding than just about anything else. So what stones are out there that we might be able to roll away? Listen, I don't want your phone calls later today that you've got a hernia and you tried to lift a car. Lazarus isn't just asleep, he's dead, right? Metaphor and all those things, but we got some stones out there. And I bet you know them. Things that people are going through, things that people are struggling with, things that you by yourself cannot solve. But a group of people working together, looking out for each other, saying, how can we help roll that away? Or when a thing has been rolled away, or when Jesus has done something in someone's life, when there's all that, who can we unbind and free and say, hey, this thing is real. This Jesus thing is real, and it's happening to you, and we want to come alongside you and celebrate, because groups of people who may have little else in common, there's magic when we do that together. And that's bad theology. It ain't magic. It's Jesus. Before and after, consistently, he looks at the people and lets them get their hands in. He looks at us and says, take away the stone. And 2 weeks from today, everything rides on him doing that for all of us.